Hi, I'm your host, Rick Sessinghaus, and excited to launch Flow Golf Podcast. Each episode, we will share stories, interview experts, and share cutting-edge strategies for peak performance. Here's my co-host, Hallam Morgan, to explain more about Flow Code Golf.
Thanks, Rick. Flow Code Golf is a framework of strategies, principles, and techniques that take us from fear to the state of flow, the state of optimal performance, and the zone where we play our best golf. You can find out more about Flow Code Golf at www.flowcode.golf. And I just want to finish up by saying this podcast is as much your podcast as it is ours. So please ask questions, provide feedback, and get engaged. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Rick, we're back again. Another podcast, another episode on the new series of the podcast, the Flow Golf Podcast. We're going to be talking today a bit more about this difference between teaching and coaching. I know it's a topic you're incredibly passionate about. I know we see in the golf industry in particular a little bit of a division. Some people going down the teaching path, some people going down the coaching path. And I think that's the same in sport in general as well. So I want to understand from your perspective, what do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as a coach? Do you see yourself as a teacher? And then I also want to know your definition of each one. What do you believe a teacher is? What do you believe a coach is?
Yeah, I think it's it's important that I'm not going to look at this as there's a division. I'm going to look at that we're going to play different roles. But the first 3 to 5 years when I was in the instruction teaching business, it was definitely, I was an instructor. I was a golf instructor. And what that meant is that I had an individual come to me. I told them what to do. I told them how to hold a club. I told them how to set up. I told them things and I showed them things, but it was put on to them as this is how you do it. Okay. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, by the way, in everything that we learn, you have a teacher, you have an instructor. And so I think the first part, when I was obsessed with golf swing and I had this model for a golf swing to teach, I was teaching a model. Do this, do this, do this. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. To me, there's limitations with that down the road. In the moment with the beginner golfer, I think we probably inherently are more of a teacher because they don't have any skill sets to reference, okay? Yet, I still think that I could have done a better job back then of coaching more, which we'll get into a moment where maybe they had played another sport, that if I knew that or I understood their athleticism or how they like to learn things or like that, and I got to be in their world, I think I would have been a better instructor back then. But I felt like it was like a copy and paste type of thing. Well, because I know the golf swing needs to do this, this, and this, everybody needs to do this, this, and this. So to me, instruction is very just A to B linear, okay? Just to them. Coaching, on the other hand, I think is a two-way street. I think now the student's role is really what it's about, not the coach's role. The coach facilitates learning. The player, in this case, the golfer, I want to know how they learn. I want to know what they're passionate about. I want to know their physical limitations. I want to know what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, what concepts do they like, and when a coach is now asking more questions than telling information, I think we're now more in a coaching role. To take it a step further, coaching to me is about understanding the complete person. That's their mental makeup, personality makeup. We talked about maybe learning style makeup, physical makeup, right? And we start getting to know the whole person. One, to me, that's just more intriguing than looking at them as a robot and trying to put them in the same positions like the other players you may have. But you as a coach, you're there for them, okay? Not the other way around. They're there because they want you to solve a problem, help them shoot lower scores, answer questions. But the only way you can really solve it is asking them what they want, asking them their experience and stuff.
And how do we get to that point as a coach? Because the innate thing to do when you learn new information, you've spent a lot of money, maybe you've spent a lot of time, you've invested all of these resources into getting this new information, and all you actually want to do is share it. You just want to tell other people, I've got this great new information. I want to tell you. I want to tell you. So it goes against almost all of our natural feelings to drop that ego, I guess, and ask questions instead. So how do you get to that point? If you're a young coach and you've taken on all this information, how do I get to the point where I can just ask questions?
Yeah, and again, you and I both know we want people to, as coaches, to gather a lot more information so they have more tools in their toolbox. Yet it's now the intention when they have a student in front of them is the intention has to flip. It's not how much information can I give them in an hour. It's because I get to interview them, know them. Now I know which tool is probably going to work best. The filtering process of asking questions actually will enhance the lesson even more because you're not going to try a bunch of different things that aren't going to work. But if you asked a few simple questions, you may have been able to get to the answer quicker. So I think it's posing that. The other thing that popped in my head is, not that I do it as often as I would like, is learning new skills on my own. And actually, there might be something that I want to learn, okay? And I go hire a coach. Now I'm the beginner.
The student, yep.
And I wish that coach would have asked me that. I wish I could have helped them out. But I'm just being a good student and I'm just listening to the instructor tell me to do this. I go, well, I guess that's it. So when anybody, I'm not saying the young coaches, but anybody go start to learn something. It could be a musical instrument. It could be a different sport. It could be whatever. What does that feel like as the learner? It's vulnerable.
Love that.
Right? And so I have to remind myself of that every now and then is what is that student going through? They're going through vulnerability. They're going through, I don't want to screw up. I guess I'll just listen and they'll shut down. But if you flip them and make them feel comfortable and be open and ask questions and get to know them and say, hey, what do you want out of this? What's the experience went out of this? Wow, it makes them feel more comfortable. We know that learning is state dependent also, right? We talk about that with flow. Is your student in a learning mindset and they're in a state of somewhat flow? Are they open to communication? But I have found that if you're just teaching somebody, the student goes, well, am I actually supposed to ask any questions? Am I supposed to give my feedback? I don't know. Right. We want this to be an open communication relationship.
For sure. And I think as well, from my own experience anyway, it's so much more fulfilling when you go down that pathway, when you actually ask questions, when you find out more about that person as an individual, because the connection between the two of you grows so much more. You understand what motivates them. You understand what's happening maybe outside of the golf course in their life as well. And you start to build that rapport with the individual. So you as a coach, you feel so much more fulfilled because you're not just helping someone fix their golf swing and telling them how to fix their slice, but you're actually helping understand that individual and develop them as a person. And I think that's ultimately can only happen when you ask those questions to figure out who they are as a human being.
Definitely. And again, it's the relationship building. And when you ask people questions about themselves, they feel like you're making them the center of it, right? And people want to be special. People want, oh, wow, he's asking me these questions. All right. And I think back to, I know we'll talk about motivation a little bit, is a simple question like, why are you here?
Yep.
And I think as instructors / coaches, I think we make too many assumptions of, oh, they're here because they want me to fix their slice. Maybe, but maybe the reason is because they don't want to feel embarrassed anymore playing in front of people. That might be the actual main reason why they're there. And maybe instead of us thinking that, like I was very much that I thought all my players' motivation was achievement and wanting to shoot 80 and stuff like that. It's like some of them came to me and said, I just want to play 36 holes when I go to a big resort and not be injured. And I just want to enjoy it. So it's like, you mean you don't want to get these goals? So you can't project your goals and your motivation on other players. And I think I did that at an early age too much as an instructor. Well, they're here because they want to be great. It's like, no, they want to hit the ball somewhere down there, enjoy the round of golf with their buddies, go on a golf trip once a year, different goals. But if you don't ask them, then you're projecting your own stuff and you're making a lot of assumptions.
And that's an interesting point, uncovering that motivation, because you said, ask them the question, why are you here? But from your experience, does that always uncover, if you just ask that one question, why are you here? Does that always uncover the true motivation, or do you have other strategies, or do you ask other questions to actually get that true reason?
Yeah, it's a layering effect. And where I pose it, I say, I basically ask, why do you play golf? So that's the generic big picture. Then it may get to, why are you here today? What would you like to accomplish today? But it's like peeling back that onion. Okay. So somebody may answer, well, why do you play golf? And they may go, because I like it. And I go, oh, okay. What do you like about it? I like hitting good shots. Okay. What about hitting like good shots? Why do you like that? And I go into a very, 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 very detailed questions, and then it may turn out to where those good shots make them feel a level of accomplishment and pride. Now they go, oh, golf is that vehicle where I can feel proud of myself to do. Now we're getting into a little bit deeper. So you peel back the onion, and what it starts is like, yeah, I like the game. I go, oh, great. And then just keep deeper and deeper and deeper. And then what we also find with motivational strategies is somebody working towards something or away from something. It's like a pain pleasure principle in a way. So say, why do you play golf? And what do you want to accomplish, right? And those combination of goals and motivation together, and people may say, I want to see how good I can get at this game. I think I can shoot in the 60s, right? That's definitely working towards. Then I'll have other people go, I don't want to suck anymore. I'm tired of playing poor golf. I don't want this anymore. And that's a working away motivation. That's very powerful in the short term, everybody. Yet, as we know with flow, we want somebody to look towards what they want. We want people to be, people to do it for intrinsic reasons of just in loving the game itself and challenging themselves and being curious. And that's part of what we call intrinsic or autotelic experience. We do it for just the joy of doing it. A lot of people, I think their motivational strategies are skewed because they're still thinking back when they first took up the game, which was, oh, I loved it. And now it's like, oh, I have to play because I put so much time into it. So we start understanding where people are coming from. I think those are some really good conversations, because if I can align their motivation to something that does excite them and working towards something, they're going to tend to put the work in. Their mindset and attitude is going to be aligned, and we will see improved performance. But again, it's back to what they want. And we can get that. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, and even from a business perspective, they're going to keep coming back. So yes, we want to help our players improve, but if you're aligning to their motivation and they keep showing up because you know why they're showing up, that's going to help you from a business lens as well, that we'll discuss much more of. But when you mention the pulling back of the layers, so you ask that first question, then another one, then another one, then another one, and you almost keep prodding. You keep prodding and finding out what actually is that true core. It reminded me of, I remember a framework, Dean Graziosi, for those of you that know him or have heard of him, he spoke about, it was called the 7 levels of why. So he said, we often just ask even ourselves when we want to know our own motivations and reasons why. We ask that first reason. Why do I want to achieve this goal? And then you need to ask your next question, why again? And then ask why again. And it's really only until you've asked yourself why maybe 4, 5, 6 times that you're starting to get to the true reason. And that reason then becomes the powerful one that can keep you motivated, keep you engaged. So I've often applied that as a coach as well to the student, is to truly understand what is that root cause. And sometimes it feels like the student will be like, you're asking me again? Like, I want to win the tournament. Why? Because it feels good. Okay, but why do you want to feel good? And you keep pushing, and you eventually get there. So no, I love that. And I think it's so important to find that out for all of your students.
And even real quick on that, because we talk about junior golfers, and you start peeling back the onion, and you say, well, why do you play golf? And oh, I like it. What do you like about it? I like to win tournaments. Okay, what about that? Well, I feel good about myself. But then you go deeper, why, and you find out it's actually because you are making your parents happy.
Yep. And that's not just juniors, by the way. That's not just juniors.
Oh, no.
That's
But yeah.
pretty much every.
Totally, right? We have these extrinsic reasons that we don't realize are really at the core of it. And I'm not judging that it should or shouldn't be that way. But if you now know that really why you're doing what you're doing is to make your parents happy, that's a completely different lens than I'm doing it for my own accomplishment and to be proud of myself, to take on a hard goal, right? There's a different reason. Now, it started off as I want to win a tournament. I want to have achievement, but then it starts to splinter into some other reasons that you want to have a reality check on.
Yeah, absolutely. So understanding motivation is, I guess, one part of understanding the overall individual before you start to coach them. So when it comes to personality types, I'm sure you've worked with so many different personality types over the years. How do you navigate that world? How do you help people that are so different from one another?
Yeah, no, and I love this, and I have studied it. I've been certified in some stuff with it that's related to personality profiles and stuff. I think what I've learned and what I really stress with everybody I work with is who you are can play great golf. And they look at me like, well, what do you mean? I go, no. Who you are, your personality can play great golf. If you look at the history of elite golfers, there is no one personality that's better than another. I think people in the Tiger days, because of his intensity and his focus, a lot of people say, well, I have to be like him. Oh, okay. I mean, arguably the best player to ever play the game, and his mindset was through the roof, unbelievably elite. But if you look back in history and you see a Lee Trevino, okay, Lee Trevino was talking all the time and was making jokes and was playful and stuff like that. He's a major championship winner. So what I'm trying to do is that some people think they need to be somebody they're not. Now, with personalities, we have certain blind spots that will be exposed. So I thought I needed to be more of that serious golfer out there because I came from a football and you're supposed to be, serious. But I find out later in my life, I probably would have been better of who I am, which is talking in between shots with playing partners, being a little bit more joyful out there, playing the game more instead of being serious. That's just my style. But if you looked at top players now, you look at a Brooks Koepka, a Rory McIlroy, a Colin Morikawa, and a Bryson DeChambeau, 4 elite players, they're all 4 different personalities. What we have to look at is what would that personality do under stress and pressure is going to be different. A Brooks Koepka does not like playing a slow play, right? That may be interference. Okay, Rory's a little more emotional, right? Colin's a little steadier, right? Bryson DeChambeau, more analytical, doesn't maybe want to play with a fast player, right? So there's situations that could expose some of your personality style, 100%. But I don't want everybody to think that everybody needs to be like Tiger, everybody needs to be like, I mean, even right now, you look at Scotty Scheffler and you look at some of the top players in the world, they're different. So let's embrace that. But we can admit when there may be interference in the environment that would get in the way of that. But my last thing on that is, if you try to be somebody you're not, that creates stress right away. If I ask somebody who tends to fade the ball all the time, I want you to go play a round of golf and hit nothing but draws. And let's say they're a scratch player. They go, well, I could do that, but that would be very uncomfortable. Okay, but it's the same thing with personality. Okay, if you're talkative in between shots, if you got a spring in your step, and I say, you can't talk to anybody in between shots, you need to be a robot, you need to show no emotion, could they do it? They could do it, but it would be actually quite stressful because they have to think about it all the time. So I want people to know what makes them tick, what are their thoughts, behaviors, and actions that makes up their personality, how it serves them on the golf course, but certainly what are situations that could interfere with that. And again, we're not going to get into all of the stuff, pace of play, who we play with, the weather, all these things that are environmental that could push at you in your personality style, of course. But I want to know who that person is that I'm coaching.
In the first place. Yeah, for sure. For sure. One of my favorite questions that you've asked, and I remember you sharing that with me in early conversations we had, is when you play great golf, what are you thinking, feeling, and doing? And I think so many people forget to even ask that question because everyone is unique. Everyone has played great golf. Yes, the definition of great golf for each person may be different, but everyone has played great golf in their eyes at some point, whether it's for a hole, whether it's for a whole round, or whether it's for a whole tournament. And going back to that place and starting to remind yourself, okay, what was I thinking, feeling, and doing in those moments? How much that can help you as a coach. I mean, for you to have that information from the player helps you enormously as a coach to then support them even more. So,
Yeah, and I remember I was going through my master's degree in sports psychology, and one of the basic assignments was on the front piece of paper, write out your best sports, and I wrote golf, but there was other people, your most successful athletic experience, and then on the opposite side, the
did
worst.
you leave that one blank by any chance?
The worst one, yeah, because I've never had that bad, you smart ass. So, yes, the first part is think about when I was at my best. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? How was that experience? And then you flip it out. My worst, what was I feeling? What was I thinking? And what was interesting about this particular exercise is for me, and I know for the other students in the room, it wasn't about their technical side. And that was my big aha. It's like, wait, I was thinking clearly. I was happy. And the other opposite, I got frustrated easily. I was irritated because of slow play. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. Those are mental processes, right? And we are inherently in golf, we are very mistake focused. What I mean by that is in golf swings, what's wrong with my golf swing? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with this? And we don't say what's right with something enough. And so that simple question, when I played my best golf, what was I thinking, feeling, and doing? And you go, huh. And then is that repeatable? And most of the time it is actually. It really is. I can change my thinking. I can focus on what I want. I can create a feeling. A lot of that stuff's in our control, but we're very wired of what's wrong and don't choke and don't do this and don't do that. But I don't know if that ever gets a solution to what we want.
For sure. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about still being able to adapt because we don't
100%.
always end up in a situation or an environment that is conducive to our best golf, right? We might be playing with that slow player. We might be with someone else we don't like, or in an environment on a golf course we don't like. There are going to be scenarios where it doesn't match our personality, so we have to have strategies. And I remember Michael Phelps, I remember hearing him in an interview, and an exercise he did that can be incredibly powerful is something he called negative visualization. And basically, what he was saying was instead of always visualizing things going perfectly well, because he said, I've never, ever had a swim where everything's gone to plan. So instead, he said, what I would do is I would visualize certain things that could go wrong, certain interferences, certain things that could happen in the swim, but then I would visualize myself overcoming them and still coming out on top. So I don't think it's not like, oh, this is who I am, and therefore I'm just that is the way it is. But it's about saying, this is who I am, that's my natural way of being, and I'm going to try and set up my entire environment to match that. But if it doesn't, then I still have strategies to navigate it to come out on top. So I think that's a really important part of this conversation around personalities and adapting as well.
Yeah, and I look at it as behavioral flexibility, right? It's ultimately the behavior. And I'm with you is that I actually, especially in my playing lessons, put people in situations that I know could cause a lot of major interference. Okay. I've had some fast players that I work with where I purposely talk for a long time before they're going to hit a shot. Or they get to a shot and I said, oh, sorry, I got to back off. There's somebody up there. And then I do it again and again and again. And I could just see the blood boil. I could see like that. But then I go, okay, now what are you experiencing? Well, Rick, I'm experiencing frustration because you won't let me hit the damn ball. I go, well, there's going to be plenty of times you're going to play where the pace of play is so slow, you're not going to get to hit at your pace. So what I think about that is let's understand some of these vulnerabilities that we have And do you have strategies to deal with that? One of my favorite things on the word patience, right? It's like, how do you teach patience, right? I thought I was like, And I had a player, a good player, and he had some patience issues. And I said, next time you go to the TSA for getting on a plane, I want you to get in the longest line in the TSA behind a family of 6 who has stroller and all that stuff, and see what goes through your mind as you go through that, right? And he's like, I hate that. I go, great. Then that becomes you're going to do it now 3 times instead of 1 time, right? The point of it is you can't control your environment. You can only control your response to it, right? But you have to put yourself in those situations, know when I am in that situation, what am I going to do? I love the Michael Phelps idea. Again, I put people through scenarios all the time of, well, what if there's a rain delay? What if the driving range is closed when you go warm up? What if I had this player, this happened to 2 USAM players. Their clubs did not get there off the airplane. Okay, now what are we doing? You got to compete in 2 days and you don't have golf clubs. Okay, so we can go down that there's multiple things that could go wrong, but are you the type of person that is going to adapt? That would be the key thing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And the final piece on this, when it comes to coaching versus teaching, that I want to discuss is this concept of self-discovery, because I guess they're kind of teaching would be you giving the information, literally providing it. There's no discovering being done. And then coaching, in my eyes, is more about creating an environment, facilitating an opportunity for that student to discover the answer themselves. So how do you see the difference, and how do you help someone on that journey of self-discovery?
Yeah, I learned this fairly early on. When I was an instructor, I would just be giving information like, do this. So let's use an example of a chip shot. Okay, ball back, weight left, leaning shaft, over and over and over again. Do it this way. And then I go, okay, there might be a different way, right? And so I flipped it to where, and this is more with intermediate and advanced players, by the way. I'm not a beginner, right? And how I do my playing lessons, and I've talked about this before, is I let the player make the decision. So here's a chip shot. What are you going to do? I'm not telling them what to do. What are they going to do? So let's say they decide they're going to use a 56-degree sand wedge and they're going to hit a mid-level shot that goes halfway there and rolls out. They hit the shot. I go, great. Based on that, you get a second ball. Would you do anything differently? So this is discovery. This is experience. Remember, I'm not telling them how to do anything. And they go, well, Rick, you know what? The other shot I had in my head was the 56, but I'm going to spin it this time. It's going to go low. It's going to take 2 bounces and check. I go, cool. Let's try that. And they try that. And then I would throw a third ball. I said, how about this? And I would give them my option. And what I was trying to do was, yes, I'm coaching and maybe I see something that I can improve upon, but I want them to go through their own filtering of looking at the lie, looking at how firm the green is, are they going to spin it, all that kind of stuff, and have them apply it. Immediate feedback loop, what can they change based on their own filtering? And then I come in and say, well, how about this? Have you tried a 60 degree? Have you tried a bump and run with a gap wedge? And then it's opening up that, and you said this, and I don't want to take your thunder away, is you're trying to create a safe space for the student to discover, to be vulnerable, to try different things. I think is a great place to go.
No, I love it. I think that's one of the most important parts of coaching when we talk about that angle. And my question just for you before we finish up, Rick, is how do we apply that? So I understand how we apply that to the technical side of the game, right? Understanding these different shots. How can a coach that's listening apply it to the mental side of the game? If they're already a swing coach and they want to start introducing mental components or having the student discover what works for them from a mental perspective, how could they start introducing through self-discovery that same process?
Yeah, so we as coaches are encouraging self-awareness as the first part. So we want to know what that player is going through. What are you experiencing right now? Open-ended question. And they may say, Coach, I'm a little nervous right now hitting a ball in front of you. Oh, okay. Now I would ask, is nervous good or bad? And they're like, bad. I go, well, could it be good? Do you think the best players in the world get nervous? Well, yes. So now I'm kind of going back and forth through the questioning and then let's say we get to an actual tool. okay, uh, you know what? A way to manage nervous energy is to use breath work to way to center ourselves. Hey, let's have some fun here. Let's take an inhale 2, an exhale 4, and let's do that together. And let's say it doesn't achieve the goal we want. Okay, let's try visualization this time. Let's try a body scan. Let's try. So the more tools we now have, we call them mental clubs, right? Mental clubs coming out of our bag. We can develop and go, hey, let's try this, with the end goal being I can still play golf being nervous if I have a certain toolbox to work with. So now we are having them experience something new. Hey, if you were nervous, would you do anything on the first tee? I don't know. I just pray that I get the ball airborne. I go, I don't know if that's a great strategy, but how about we try something else, right? And we have some fun with it. They admit that there's a little bit of this energy that might get in the way. Let's try breath work, body scan. And so that's where I would say we try 3 or 4 different repetitions with some different tools. We call them flow triggers, different ways for them to shift their state.
Yep. There's been some cool events that I've done recently, and we'll talk more about this. I have got one here, but the focus calm technology that we use to help people understand what shifts their state on demand. And a couple of the events that I've done recently have been some really interesting journeys of self-discovery. So what I usually do, we might introduce a few basic techniques first, but then we put the device on people and we say, right, 3, 2, 1, go, shift your state. And I ask them to kind of think about any technique they want. It may be ones we've already introduced them to, or it could be something totally different that they start to utilize to shift their state, and they can get playful with it. I really don't care what they're going to use. And we had some funny scenarios. There was one student in particular where he actually had tried everything that we had suggested. He had tried the breath work, he had tried the visualization, he tried sound techniques, tactile, touch, he tried body scans. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't shifting his state. And all of a sudden, I remember, all of a sudden, he kind of went down into this crouched position. And I was looking at the phone and I was like, what the? And it shot up and it went really high. And then I asked him to do it again.
The number for everybody, the number going up
for sure
means it's a positive in this case. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the number went really high, and then he did it again, and he did it again. And we had the conversation after, and we were like, why did that, what happened? Like, why did you decide to go down into a crouch position? And he said, well, I do it often because when there's slow play, I do it in the fairway. And then I almost saw this, like, this hypothetical light bulb go off on his head. And he was like, oh, when I was younger, I was a catcher in baseball, and I spent a lot of time down in this position, and it was a place I was focused. It was a place I was calm. And all of a sudden you saw almost like this energy inside of him, like, wow, like now I understand what my code for flow is, my flow code. And it all happened through that journey of self-discovery, of him just thinking back to, even subconsciously, I don't think he even did it without with realizing. It was almost a natural response for him to just go down into this kneeled position, this crouch position, and it shifted. And that I loved that story. And I share it all the time when we're at other events. And I actually shared that same story at an event we were at in China more recently. And that journey was so funny as well, because I shared that story, and that opens people's minds to, oh, wow, like I can get creative with what could shift my state. And I was walking around the different groups, we'd split them into groups, and this one guy is kind of like jumping up and down like this. And myself and the host, we're like looking at him thinking, what on earth is he doing? He was like jumping up and down. And we had the conversation through a translator, and he said, well, I'm a horse rider. And he said, whenever I seem to make this movement, my score goes high, I'm focused, I'm calm. So we all had a laugh again with the group, and we joked and said, it might work, but you might not have many friends on the golf course. Not many people will be playing with you. But ultimately, like, those stories start to open people's minds to the fact that there's not these boxes that you sit in with what works for you as an individual, whether it's mental techniques or technical skills. There are so many ways to do things and to get a certain result. And for you to uncover what works best for you through that journey of self-discovery, through being a bit of a child again, through being playful, creative, is what we love here at Flow Code. So I wanted to share those stories because I think that's so closely connected to, yes, self-discovery, but self-discovery through mindset and figuring out how you can shift your state through some of the weirdest, wackiest, and most innovative ways that we could think of, So go back again. It brings that question back up. Go back to the places. When have you felt your best? When have you been the most focused? When have you been the most calm? And bring those experiences back to this present moment so you can perform your best right now. So I've loved this conversation. I think that conversation between coaching and teaching is an important one. And for each person that's listening to this, whether you see yourself more as a teacher or if you see yourself more as a coach, just to have clarity on which one you are. And maybe it shifts, like you said, from day to day, from person to person, lesson to lesson. But understanding how to be the best coach, understanding how to be the best teacher, and being able to apply them both when needed, I think is vital. So thank you so much again, Rick. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you're enjoying these conversations. We'll continue to bring more of them. Please give us feedback. We're open to discussing any topics, but have a wonderful rest of your day and we'll see you for the next one.